Today's episode of the Ramp It Up podcast contains explicit language and may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener's discretion is advised. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Ramp It Up podcast with your host, Noelle.
Are you ready to ramp it up?
Ramp it up, ew!
Hey, yo, ramp it up, B.
Girl, ramp it up! Ramp it up!
The Ramp It Up podcast.
Hey, you need to ramp it up.
Ramp it up.
Welcome back for another episode of the Ramp It Up podcast. I'm your host and your favorite Zone Wheels, Ronell. February the 13th, one day away from Valentine's Day. Hopefully you guys have your dates all set up, your reservations in advance, those flowers and chocolate covered strawberries all ordered up. Hopefully you're not one of those last minute guy or girls trying to scramble and put something together. Although I guess it's never too late, but why put all that pressure on you? Last episode, we talked a little bit about getting back into the dating game, and I gave a few pieces of advice for those of us who are post-injury or who've been dealing with different disabilities and just the apprehension of getting back into the dating game. So I had about, 6 pieces of advice that I shared. Hopefully you guys found them helpful. And for those of you who are able to apply that advice, I had 10 wheelchair-friendly date ideas. Those definitely do come in handy because sometimes, I know I have dealt with it, trying to figure out where to go, what could be accessible for you, and just trying to be creative on the fly can be a bit difficult when in a wheelchair and dealing with some of your mobility challenges. So I gave 10 wheelchair-friendly date ideas alongside the advice. Apply them well, use them wisely, young Padawans. Yeah, that was a Star Wars reference. But hopefully you guys are ready to celebrate your Valentine's Day weekend. And if you choose to do so as a single person by yourself, love on yourself. Take yourself out to dinner. Buy yourself some flowers, a big old teddy bear, some chocolates. Get in the bubble bath, put on some Sade. Pour yourself a glass of wine and just be sexy all by yourself. Loving yourself is first and foremost. So enjoy your Valentine's weekend one way or another. Now, last week I did mention that we were going to have 2 guests joining us on the podcast. There's a couple. I was really looking forward to our conversation. They seem really cool through their YouTube page and the Instagram page as well. They go by the name of Leon, or let me be proper, Mr. and Mrs. Leon and Tierra Harris. 2 really cool people that I've had the pleasure now to have a great conversation with. Just a little bit about them. They are an interabled couple. That is, I guess, the term people tend to use for a couple where one person may not have a disability and the other one does, specifically when we're talking about wheelchair users. So Leon is a quadriplegic. He was a gunshot victim when he was 17, resulting in a spinal cord injury. And years after his injury, he met wife Tierra Harris. Well, she wasn't Harris at the moment, but Tierra. They actually went to the same church, but I'll leave all the details for you guys to catch during the interview. But they've now been married for about 8 years, and they're the parents of a beautiful 4-year-old girl by the name of Noelle. They choose to share their journey as an interabled couple with a goal to help other interabled couples. They aim to help allies of their community become more inclusive. Through their Instagram page, just sharing their humor and their personal stories, I think they're doing a great job connecting with the community and, I guess, pushing back on the stereotypes that people who have a disability, who have spinal cord injuries, can't find love or can't be parents or just can't enjoy a normal life. So we're going to jump right into the conversation that I have with Leon and Tierra. On today's episode of the Ramp It Up podcast, I am joined by two very special guests. We are celebrating Valentine's Day coming up this weekend, and I definitely want to share a story of love. You know, we're always talking about good things here on the podcast and sharing the stories of great individuals, but I really wanted to focus on love and relationships coming up. Last episode, we talked about dating post-injury and gave you guys some wheelchair ideas, but today I'm talking about a couple who are, I guess, labeled as an inter-abled couple. That's the term a lot of people like to use for a couple where one person it may have an injury or what's referred to as a visible disability and the other doesn't. And I came across this couple on the internet. Instagram is an amazing thing. They go by the name of Tierra and Leon, or should I say Mr. and Mrs. Tierra and Leon. Give them an opportunity to say hello. What's going on, guys?
What's going on?
Again, wanted to say, as I told you guys before, I was so happy to see a beautiful Black couple. I was like, all right, people that look like me, sharing love post-injury. So I really wanted to get you guys on the air to share your story with, again, myself and my listeners. So thank you for taking this time out. I know it's Super Bowl Sunday. I don't know if y'all got big plans to watch the game later on and Valentine's Day weekend, but thank you for taking this time out to join me.
No problem.
No problem.
Glad to be here, man.
I have no
Glad
plans.
we could hook it up. I mean, I'm gonna watch the game. I just want to watch the halftime show. I don't even know who plays. The Rams and somebody else. That's all I know.
Yeah, ever since
that's all I care.
Once Tom Brady left the Patriots, I didn't really care too much about the league anymore. But I guess I got to watch it.
It's gonna be on somewhere. It's gonna be on one of the TVs. It'll be on.
Definitely. So just to give a little bit of background about you guys, just to listeners, Leon and Tierra Harris have been married for 8 years. They are the parents to a beautiful young baby girl, Noelle. I believe she says she's 4 years old now. Mm-hmm. Beautiful 4-year-old. Leon actually had his spinal cord injury when he was 17. He was the victim of violence. We'll hear a little bit more about that. But about 8 years after that, Leon and Tierra met through church, praise the Lord. And here we are after 8 years of marriage together, looking beautiful. They are on their own Instagram page, Heroscopic Humor, which we will hear about as we continue. But I'd much rather hear it directly from you guys. Just give you the opportunity to tell me a little bit about yourselves as individuals. And then I guess we'll go into a bit about your story, Leon. But of course, ladies first. Tierra, tell me a bit about yourself.
All right. Well, I'm Tierra Harris. I am in my late 30s. I am older of the two of us. I you know, it's funny. I never had to talk about just me. So this this is different. I used to be a respiratory therapist. That's what I did for 15 years. That's what I was doing when Leon and I met. And just recently I am transitioning into just being his caregiver, managing the house and running our brand Heroscopic Humor.
Good. And of course you are an individual first and foremost. So
I know, but it's like I never have it like prepared because it's always
we don't ever talk to disabled people, so everyone always wants to hear my story first.
Right.
You get it, bro. You get it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you get it. So you don't want to hear from me. That's what I'm like. I don't want to talk about wheelchair stuff. I just want to talk. But
our
they want to hear
mirror,
the story
so it's just like we
in
know.
the parenting.
Yeah,
they want to hear the love story in the parenting, but nobody's ever like, who's Tierra as a person, like outside of us.
And I can say this especially through the Instagram page. Like I feel like it sounds weird, but I feel like I'm getting to know you more through it. I read an article that you wrote, so I'm like, I see the personality Tierra a bit more than Leon. So I'm like, oh, I want to find out more about you.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. I just pop in from time to time. That's what I said. It's like, I just pop in.
All right, so a little bit about yourself.
For me? Oh, I got a shot. That's all.
Simple, straight to the point. All right, cool. Can't argue that.
No, so my name is Leon. I'm 31. I've been in a wheelchair going on 15 years in March. I was the victim of a gunshot wound coming home from work when I was 17. Right now, I'm actually trying to build up Heroscopic Humor, I'm trying to also build up a cybersecurity career as well. So I'm in the beginning stages of that. I actually have a little tech job now that I got, and I'm just trying to do things that they don't expect me to do. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do everything they don't want me to do.
I hear that, especially now, like there's a really big boom I know for women and people of color to be jumping into tech. So I'm all about it. I'm in fact doing my side as well, but that's my story. We ain't talking about me today. We talking about
I
y'all.
wanted to hear about it. You said tech. I was like, what's up?
I recently started doing some work with the United Spinal Association, and
Okay.
I have what's called the Tech Access Group, and we're just talking about that intersection where technology meets people who have injuries or just dealing with disability, and how it's become our lives. We utilize technology to connect, to get back to work, to get to school, to entertain ourselves, and just that intersectionality and making sure that technology is accessible for everyone else. So just doing some advocacy work, testing out products and apps and websites and stuff. So
That's cool.
again, just making sure it's available for everyone. Some of us don't have as much mobility. Some have cognitive challenges. Some have vision and hearing impairment. So just making sure technology is available for everyone across the spectrum.
When you get a chance, put me down, please.
We'll definitely talk. Yes, sir.
Please.
There's like 5 of us brown folk in there. So definitely looking forward to a few more people.
Put me in there. Yeah, I'm with that for sure.
It's another area that needs representation because don't know technologies out there for them post-injury. Like I didn't know anything about voice control and activation.
Oh, yeah.
It just changed the game. So we'll definitely connect on that one on the side, brother.
For sure.
So if I could ask you, of course, just to share a bit about your story. You did sum it up rather well by saying you got shot, but
I got you.
I came across your YouTube video and the interview you did with Beyond the Bullets, and it was touching, man. I gave you the little Denzel tear. It came out, but just to share a little bit with the people that can get to know.
All right, so yeah, like I said earlier, I had just turned 17 2 weeks prior. It happened in March, and I didn't live in a predominantly urban area. It was kind of a mixed area, middle class a little bit. But I was coming home from work Monday evening, and some young gentlemen drove around the bus, stopped on my block. And as I was walking onto my block to go to my house, 2 of them jumped out the back of the car. We had conversation, a dialogue. Basically, they wanted to rob me. I wasn't trying to get robbed. They wanted me to go in the alleyway. I didn't want to go in the alleyway. And because I was young and naive, and at that time, my house was so close, I thought I could just run. I didn't think somebody had a gun. I've never seen a gun at this time. So I went to run, and then the next thing I know is I'm on the ground. I must have heard the bullet because, again, every time I tell the story, I remember something else. I'm like, I must have heard the bullet because I said he shot me, but I didn't know I got shot. I don't recall hearing a shot. I did 2 months in Thomas Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia, one of the best spinal cord hospitals in the country. I'm so grateful that I actually had a connection with my mother that worked there at the time. So I was blessed. I didn't have to deal with a lot of the hospital stuff that people have to deal with an injury and all like that. And then I went to McGee Rehab, another one of the top rehabilitation places that happened to be in Philadelphia. So I was blessed to be in Philadelphia. Did 2 months there, came home to a house, had to sleep in the living room, get bathed in the living room, had to get carried up the basement steps. Then we moved to an apartment, and from there just kind of moved. And every place I've moved to have gotten better accessibility wise. Every move I've made has almost been like a lateral jump for me, accessibility wise. And I've just been learning to evolve, adapt. I ended up 7 years later. I didn't really think I was going to get married. I was out there, dating a little bit, whatever. And then ran into this one. Was like, this is the one. Really quick.
Not when we first met, though.
Oh, okay. Oh, I can't wait to get that part of it. Okay. I'll rewind just a little bit because I don't meet too many people who've been injured at such a young age. Like I met someone who've been like 15, but most people that I know have been injured in their adult life. A bit about, again, you're 17, probably in high school or just graduated, you're young, you're literally just starting your life. And now it's something completely different. Can you tell me a little bit about adapting at such a young age?
Like as I've been living it for 15 years, I'm just now realizing that getting shot that young stunted my growth. I stopped kind of growing until I was maybe 27. Like even though I got married at 24, even 27 is when I felt like I started growing more and started advancing. It's just, you constantly learning your body. When you're disabled like this, there's a lot of changes in your body. So you're trying to figure out what you can and can't do. And I'm a high functioning quad. So for me, it was, some things were easy, but then it was kind of hard at the same time. So it was like, I can do some stuff, but I need just a little bit of assistance. So I was struggling with that. Schooling was interesting. I was able to go back to my high school for a little bit of time. But it didn't work out. I had some health issues, so I ended up having to get homeschooled. Thankfully, I grew up in a time where college, you could go online, but college didn't work out for me that well either. But at least I could pursue my studies online if I wanted to. I was able to go to campus as well. Didn't like it that much. It was hard. It was hard. It was just a lot of adjustments. I was kind of alienated. I had very few friends. Didn't really go many places because I had public transportation to rely on. So you never know how long it's going to take to get there, what time you're going to get there, how you're going to get home. It was tough. I've had a lot of stories.
How would you say your support system was like, family and friends?
I had a small support system, but they were solid. I had my mother and I had a couple friends, and they were there. I did have support. I wasn't really ever too much alone or had to struggle like that. It just was the regular handicap struggles, but it wasn't, nobody was there kind of struggle, thankfully, for me.
Here, so now, again, let's go closer to the present. Not all the way there yet, but like you said, about 7 years later, if I read correctly, you were at church. You were just praising your Jesus and helping people with their computers. And along came this lovely lady who needed a little bit of help. I'm going to let Tierra jump in a little bit here.
She slid in the DMs. Okay.
Well, that's how Leon likes to tell the story. The way I'm going to tell the story, since you told me to chime in, is that we were at an event that was being ran by somebody from we went to the same church, and we had no interaction prior to this particular event. And at this event, that's when I learned that he was really good with computers. So I was like, okay, well, let me keep that in the back of my pocket because I am not good with computers. This was in the spring, and I think it probably was winter when I actually ended up reaching out to him because my computer had a virus and I had no idea how I was going to fix it. So reach out to him. He fixes my computer. To get my computer back, he says to me, oh, well, give me your phone number so I can get it out of the trunk of the car, which is in the parking lot at the church that we're at the same exact time. And so then I had to come back for second service because he couldn't get it after first service. So that's how we ended up exchanging numbers. I did slide into his DMs to get my computer fixed, not to be like all up in his face. So that's why I said it wasn't love at first sight, because we met at an event in the spring and we did not start talking until December. We became friends first. And then we went on our first date actually around Valentine's Day.
You said you had DM. I like your story.
We met in the we met in the metaverse. That's what I'm going to start saying now.
It wasn't meta then.
I know, but we met in the metaverse before it was the metaverse.
It sounds nice. I like that part of the story. I would have given you a chance, but I like your story. It sounds dope. All right, so and pardon me if I go a little too far, but as a single guy, I'm out here trying to find mine. So I guess I'm gonna start going back to church more regularly. But
go for it.
Were there any apprehensions, would you say, in the beginning with talking to a gentleman in a chair?
Not really. I think one of the first things that always came to my mind was that I could be with somebody who can walk and still not want to do things. So I could be with somebody that's able-bodied and they may still not want to go scuba diving or and I know the things that I don't want to do. So it was kind of like the life that I kind of live, him being in a chair did not seem like it would be drastically different. Again, I also have a background in, respiratory therapy. So I'm used to seeing some different things. And I think that played a part in it. One of my biggest apprehensions was the fact that he was younger than me and I knew I was ready to settle down. And when we were just friends, he always talked about never wanting kids. And so that was more my apprehension about us being together than him being in a chair. But I will have to say, all of these years later, I do think that I may have been naive in the beginning because it is hard. It's not to say that it's not worth it, but it is much harder than I think I anticipated. And it just took us a while to kind of find our footing. And I think we've we're getting there, but it definitely was, there were a lot of hard moments that I was not prepared for physically or mentally. But my apprehension was never because of just the chair. It was honestly just something else to figure out. You know, my house wasn't accessible. So it was kind of like either we move somewhere accessible or how do we make this accessible? It was never anything like, I can't do this or I would never do this. That thought never crossed my mind. He always made me feel comfortable. He made me feel special. He's funny. And I love the fact that he allowed me to be a kid again, because that was something that I like missed in my past dating experiences. I never really felt super comfortable. And I noticed that when I was with him, I was like, oh, I really am myself. And I've never had this experience when dating anybody before him. So that kind of, you know, was more of the pros versus the cons, so to speak.
And if I could ask you, Leon, not only that question, but just about building the confidence to get into the dating world, because dating itself is difficult as it is, you know, just trying to have that courage to come up to a woman just like, hey, what's good? You know, my name is whatever. But now adding the assumed challenge of having the injury. How was that like for you?
I didn't have that problem, bro.
Oh, pardon me, my bad. Okay, cool. That's just the rest of us regular guys. You was just...
I mean, I wasn't out there shooting my shot at him, but I wasn't. I was like, just take it. Listen, you get what you see. That's how I was. You get what you see. I mean, not technically, you get a little bit more, but it was like I'm gonna just be me and like, hey, if it flies, it flies. If not, yeah, I wasn't. I don't think I was young too. I was young, so dating wasn't hard. It was just was just talking casually and just see where it goes, kind of deal. I did have an apprehension with Tierra. I was really worried because he kept telling me she was older, but she looked much younger. So I didn't believe her. We would go out to get drinks and they would card her every time. So I was like, this, and I was like, and like she laughed, like people laughed. That was my real apprehension. I was like, I don't know if you're really young or old. That's why I didn't talk. That's why I wasn't love at first sight, because I'm not about to go to jail. You 16? Like, no. I didn't know how old you was. But no, it was good. I didn't have confidence issues with talking to women. They were down the line with other things, but not reaching out to her, shooting my shot in the DM, Facebook. And the reason why I asked for her number is because I am in a wheelchair. At the time, the computer was in the car, my mother's car, kind of far away. So I did need to have some time to navigate rolling over some of the little potholes and crevices. And I needed her to give me her number to give me some grace.
It was smooth. It worked. It worked out.
It worked.
Now, again, I told y'all I Googled the mess out of y'all. So when it came to the wedding, it looked like you guys got a free wedding package from the area. Can you guys tell me a little bit about the and then leading up to the actual wedding?
It's first of all, it's funny that people like can Google us.
Yeah, no. The internet is scary. The internet is
that's something to get used to. I don't even remember how I found it, but there was an event planner in Philly who was trying to take what they were making an art gallery, which is a really small space in Philly. And it's in like West Philly, where it's not really an area that you would even really think to have events, much less a wedding. It was really hard to tell my family, oh, we're going to get married. If anybody listening to this is familiar with 52nd Street in Philly, is like, that's not where you go to get married. That's where you go to get like knockoff stuff. You might run and get some sneakers. Like it's not a street that you would think to be like, oh, people are dressed and going somewhere. So this event planner was trying to figure out how to utilize the space to advertise it for events. So they wanted to do a free wedding to be able to see. We were like their guinea pigs. Mm-hmm. And so we had to submit a video explaining why we should win. And we used the wheelchair angle.
There was outside.
Nothing wrong with that.
He did all of the talking. He talked about how it was expensive, which is true. It's expensive to have a wedding. It's expensive to find somewhere accessible to live. And they loved it. And so we got a free wedding for 25 people. We got married on the Friday, and then we basically partied all weekend because we got married on a Friday. We had a second reception on Saturday, and then my birthday was that Sunday. So we had a all white weekend. It was, my mom threw us a second reception for all the people that couldn't come to the first one. So we had a blast. It was really fun.
Party, man.
Sounds dope. And ain't nothing wrong with using the angle. I am finding that out every day.
Use it, bro. Use it, bro. Use it until you lose it.
I'm gonna be honest. You said the west side of Philadelphia, and in my brain, I started singing the Fresh Prince. I couldn't help it. It was this close to coming out, but I was like, man, let me hold it back.
It was funny. Like if you saw the pictures, this place had this really big window in the front of it because it was an art gallery. Mm-hmm. And it would be like, there was this lady called the Candy Lady who had like a basket or a box of candy that she wore on her head. And everybody knew her on 52nd Street to be selling candy out of this box. And like, she was outside of the wedding. Like, people were like standing outside looking in at us, dancing at our...
Yeah, people was watching. We was a show for 52nd Street.
It was very interesting. But memorable.
Yeah, I love it.
Definitely. And I think that's what is the important aspect of it. It's a memory. It's something that you guys will have forever. And it was free.
Oh, I might as well listen. I might as well get the bigger.
What? Huh? Oh, if you want to tell that story, I'll let you tell that story.
I got the best handicap story. Okay. So it was my wedding. You know, I don't know if you know this, but for me, when I get nervous or I have a lot of anxiety, stuff happens. You can't control your bowels. Mm-hmm. Apparently, mine's decided to just do whatever they wanted to do at the altar.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there listening to the man talk, and I'm like, something just happened, and I'm looking at her eyes, and I'm she's looking at my eyes, and I'm like, it's over. This is it. It ain't a white wedding no more. And
he's like looking at me for me to tell him what's happening, and I'm looking at him to be like, let's just focus. And like my brother and I think one of his groomsmen were like behind him, like trying to clean everything up, and they're like, you know, thank God we were on 52nd Street. They're like running down the street to other stores to buy towels and stuff that they need. It wasn't a ton, but I guess just preparing for like, how are we going to finish the rest of the evening if we just had an accident?
Yeah. Basically, we allowed to say whatever we want to say on here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was scared shitless, bro. That's all. I was just scared shitless, bro. That's all it was, bro.
But it's funny, I didn't even learn from that moment that like that's a normal, like that's a thing to expect from him when he gets nervous about something, is that it may come out on that end. And it has over the years.
Yeah,
a lot of things that we've done.
Anxious moments.
Yeah.
I don't know. Avoid anxiety to the best of your ability.
I do, and that's what I try to do, man. I try to be even killed because I can't control it.
And also, I guess that's a good lesson for anyone listening and, you know, getting into the dating world, because there's some apprehension in sharing certain aspects of yourself with your new partner, especially when it's a new person. But these are realities. Like I pass out randomly. Like we could just be chilling, I'm drinking, eating, and I'm gone. I'm just out. And people are just like, did he just die? I'm like, nah, give him a minute, he'll come back. And that's my thing. Like I have to how much I speak, or if it's too hot, because I get like a 30-second warning at most before I pass. But you know, you don't want to come out up front to a brand new girl you're talking to, like, hey, just to let you know, we could be having a conversation. I'm just gonna be unconscious for about 2 minutes. But the reality is it does become a part of your daily life. And if it's a partner that's going to be there for you and do some caregiving or just be supportive, they have to know these things at some point.
Yeah,
but that's epic. At the altar, I'm gonna keep that in mind.
The altar, man. Man. A lot of people don't know that story. That's the funny part. Like,
he doesn't share that story.
I was scared. I was embarrassed by it for the longest time. And then the other day, I was just like, I'm over being embarrassed by it. It's funny as hell.
But it's definitely good to have people in your corner that, like, you know, it wasn't a big scene. Like, you had the right people with you at the right time.
Yeah, because one of my best men, he worked in that field, so he knew what was up. Like me and him never had that experience, but like he's worked in that field, so it was just like, you know, and nobody made a big deal. Nobody ever talked about it, actually. I mean, can't say nobody.
It's never come up in conversation.
It's never been a joke, and I want to make it a joke now.
Your friends are better than mine because I'd be getting clowned about that all the time. So
talks about it, man.
Nobody talks about it.
I don't even know if everybody see it. That's the funny part. I wonder if people didn't even see it. I don't know.
Maybe they did.
Whatever, man.
So Tierra did mention that Leon wasn't too geeked about the idea of having kids, but here you guys are now with a 4-year-old. Can you tell me a little bit about not only getting to that point where you wanted to, but the whole process? Because I know for people who are quads or just post-spinal cord injury, it's not as simple as the whole stork bringing the baby. It's a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, so one of the first conversations we had before deciding to date was, I wanted kids, he didn't. And I think it may have been more just the apprehension of what is it like to parent from a chair. That could have been more the reason why he convinced himself he didn't want children. And then once we were married and were trying to navigate that journey, because that took we started trying to figure out how to get pregnant right before we even got married, because
Just preparing.
I think part of him getting injured at 17 was some of these questions may not have come up. Some of these thoughts may not have been at the forefront. And so a lot of people, meaning his medical team, did not think he was going to have a problem getting me pregnant. And so it is different for everybody. There are some people who have no issues with ejaculating and producing sperm and semen, and some people do. And so it took us 2 years to figure out how to get pregnant.
Well, it took us because we was giving ourselves about 2 years anyway.
Yeah, we wanted to wait 2 years anyway.
And in that time, we was actively pursuing, because before we got married, I had a doctor. I asked, I was dating, I was like, yo, am I gonna be good? Like, am I good to go? She was like, yeah, if you need a couple Viagra, boom, we got you. No, G.
Viagra didn't work.
No, G. I had so many different things. We went to a super specialist. Yeah. I promise you, that's the name of him. A super specialist.
He switched urologists and a new urologist. Once they realized that it wasn't a matter of the quality of his sperm, it was a matter of getting it from where it resides to me. That it was like, I'm going to send you and he literally was like, this super specialist. And I was like, well, who is that? What do they do?
Let me tell you what they do, bro. They give you super Viagra. It's like 3 or 4. It's called a trimix and a quad mix. And they mix literally 4 different brands of Viagra together. And I mean, you gotta.
It's not romantic at all.
Yeah, you gotta kind of. It's like you're doing heroin or something. You gotta shoot up.
You gotta shoot up.
It's a little weird. It's a little weird, but it didn't work out for us. That's the crazy part.
Well, I always wonder now if had I known about the WAGS group, the Wives and Girlfriends of FCI, if our journey would have been different, because I feel like now being in a community with them, you do hear everybody else's stories and all the things that other people tried that, it's neither here nor there at this point, because we already did what we needed to do. But there are a lot of options in terms of, is it Viagra? Is it Cialis? Is it a trimix? Is it a matter of erection versus ejaculation? All of those things kind of come into play. And so what ended up happening for us was that we just did a full round of IVF. And we had decided prior to our round with that we wanted Noelle to be fully Leon's and fully mine. Mm-hmm. And if that wasn't an option for us, we were just not going to have children. So what we did was we found a doctor. Well, we already had the doctor because we found him before we even got married, because I was going to see him for my own personal, I thought I had like fibroids and didn't. And it worked out because we ended up needing him to get us pregnant. And he's very confident in that ability and his craft. And so
yes,
he's very cocky.
Yeah,
he's like this is what I do for a living. I can do this.
I'm gonna get you pregnant.
And he was not wrong. But yeah, in the process, we met him. We found out everything, how much everything costs, which is really expensive. We were blessed enough to be included in a clinical trial, which helped cover the cost of our drugs, which is basically half of the cost of IVF cycle. And so I should say, because Leon punked out and couldn't give me my injections, I had to give myself my own injections. So yes, I'm a superwoman. You're welcome. And what we ended up doing was the day they found a urologist that they work with, and the day that they needed to retrieve all of my eggs from me, they put him to sleep first, cut his balls open, got the sperm out, made sure he had some swimmers.
All right, Paul,
and
you
then
can't
it
just
was my
run
turn.
past that as fast as you.
Yeah,
said
she
that.
can.
That was-
She can. I mean, she can because she had her own pain. But for a woman, yeah, just every time my daughter says I hurt her, I would be like, it hurt me.
Well, I'm glad because he never tells that part of the story. We always say we did IVF, but he never tells people that that's how we did it. So I'm like glad I could finally be like, cut his balls open, make it seem like real cash.
Hurt, bro. And I don't know how I was feeling afterwards. It hurt, bro. I was in pain, but I'm like, this hurt, bro. Like, wait a minute. I need ice. Give me some ice.
I can actually feel it.
Give me some ice, please.
Isn't that the worst one? Like, oh, now I can feel it all of a sudden. Now that it hurts, like, oh, I can feel it.
Where are the perks at now?
All right, but it worked the first time around for you guys.
First time around,
Yes.
God was good, man. It worked the first time around.
Yep, we only did one round of IVF. We were able to make
seven embryos.
7 embryos. We took the best one out of the 7, and here we are for 4 years later with Noelle.
Now, a few of my friends and people that I know who went that route, they had multiples. Like 2 of them had triplets.
Yeah.
That
was the fear.
Okay, I was about to say, like, that wasn't a concern, or they didn't tell you that possibility?
They did. So they did, and we negated that by just putting 1 embryo, right?
Yeah. So before we decided to get pregnant, Leon had decided he only wanted to have 1 kid, and that wasn't the easiest thing for me to accept because I always thought I would have 2, but I had to really think about the fact that I was approaching 35 and I didn't want to be what they considered to be a geriatric pregnancy. So if we were going to have 2, they would have to have been back to back. The fact that we had to go through IVF meant that if we were going to do it back to back, that's a lot of money to do a second round. Again, we were living in Philly at the time, so we weren't living in the best school district. So it was kind of like, how can we afford private school for 2 children? So a lot of these things came to mind, and I was kind of like, okay, I kind of mourned the kid I never had. And so once I was okay with that, we went through and we only had 1. And yet, like he said, they told us we had a conversation before the embryo transfer, as to how many we wanted to transfer, because our chances of getting pregnant were 60%, which is really high for an IVF cycle. So they were like, if you put 2 in, you're going to have twins. So we were like, let's just go with the 1.
I was like, risk it all on 1. Put it all on 1. Push it in. No.
And it is a hard decision to make because it's so expensive that you don't know, like, if this doesn't work. And I also had a friend who she did too, and 1 didn't take and 1 did. And so, imagine if our 1 didn't.
That was it.
It would have been the same as having another one. You have to figure out, where's this money coming from to do this all over again? Not completely over again because the embryos exist, but it's not like $50 compared to what you paid the first time. It's still thousands of dollars the second time around. So yeah, we knew that we were, it was supposed to work, and it did.
Well, thankfully it did. Now we have Noelle just here being a beautiful baby girl and growing up fast. And again, through one of the interviews you did, Leon, you said something that like it touched me, but like funny wise, because you said they came up with the name by just flipping your name backwards. I have always wanted to do that for myself. I was like, oh, Lenore, my baby girl.
Yeah, that's good.
I've always wanted to just.
I like that.
So fingers crossed. If time comes for me, I'm like, oh, cool. I'm not the only one that flips their own name backwards.
Yeah, just get on Facebook, bro. Just get on Facebook Messenger right now. You're good. Time will come.
We also didn't know if we were having a boy or a girl. So he picked the name. It was either going to be another Leon or it was going to be Noelle.
So now let's talk about being parents now. Like, you're an interable couple. There are I don't want to say complications, but the challenges that exist there. But now we've thrown in a baby in it. Not only that, but most importantly, you're pregnant. So I know doing some of the caregiver activities aren't as easy anymore, and needing Leon to help you out in certain areas. How was that journey?
Well, off record, Leon is extremely independent. So as a caregiver, he makes my job really easy. I almost forget that I'm working because he does do a lot. And so our transition wasn't too bad in terms of, well, I guess I should say for me, during my pregnancy, it wasn't too bad.
Easy.
First of all, my mom was there doing any and everything that she can get her hands on. So that helped a lot. She just likes to be involved. So it wasn't like I don't do transfers. Well, that wasn't something I had to do consistently at that time. So it wasn't like a giant adjustment. And Leon actually was a stay-at-home dad for 3 years. So that was probably harder than the pregnancy part of it. It was a lot of our struggles came once she was here.
Yeah. Pregnancy was easy. For real.
Pregnancy was fun.
Thank God. That's why I don't want to ever do it again, because we were blessed with we had a couple hiccups.
Yeah.
But pregnancy for the most part was easy. I didn't feel like she had cravings. I didn't have to do no midnight runs. So the only issue I had was the actual birth. I was on the toilet while somebody was at work, and it was like, I think it's time. And I'm like, oh, like, okay, give me a few minutes. Let me get my back up in here.
Okay.
Suck it in, or let me get it all out, because we're going to be at the hospital for a couple days. I had to, because we were going to be at the hospital for a few days. So
I went to work actively in labor. I didn't realize it at the moment. Because they kept starting and stopping, and it was like, is this just another, I guess Braxton Hicks, it just starts and stops. And I was trying to save all of my time to be home with the baby. So I was like, I don't want to miss a whole day of work if this is not about to go down. Yeah. But also I worked where I delivered. So it was kind of like, well, if I am in labor, I'm in the right place anyway. So I get to work and they're like, you should go home. And I was like, but I'm going to deliver here. Why am I going to make him come get me to take me home to have to come back?
Yeah.
Right. So I just kept working, and I worked until I was about to have her. I think my contractions were like 2 minutes, maybe 1 minute apart. My family, like, he was at the hospital, my sister, my mom.
We was at the delivery room before her.
They were waiting in the waiting room because I didn't even have a room yet, because I was still an employee, not a patient.
Sorry.
Yeah. Would I do it again? Probably not. I mean, I probably would, honestly. I probably would, because it's a really good distraction. It kept me really busy for a long time.
Listeners, shout out to all the super women out there who are
basically that's all it is.
Just out here doing everything. I'm like, I know.
Yeah, we were delivering like a micro preemie, and they were like more worried about me than the mom that was delivering her. They were like, "Are you going to be okay?" I was like, "I'm coming over as soon as we get done with this one. I'll be right there." And they thought I was joking. I was like, "No, I was serious. I'm ready. Let's do this." And they did all my paperwork, and I think I had her
45 minutes late.
Not even, I don't think.
45 minutes late. You did a couple.
The doctor came in and was like, "Oh, it'll probably be 12 hours before you have her. It's your first kid." And then it was probably maybe 15, 20 minutes later. They were trying to find her because she went to like dinner, and here I am ready for this baby.
Well, flew out.
Yeah, 2 pushes. She was out.
Okay, you're gangster. I'm not mad at that. Go ahead. All right. So how's it been just raising her? I've seen some of the videos on your YouTube page, just being a wheelchair dad and just being a mom. Like, how has it been?
It's an experience.
Yeah.
It's an experience.
Every day is an experience.
Every day is an experience.
I think in the very beginning, it was a lot of, one way that he put it in an interview was trying to like care for somebody with no trunk control when he doesn't have trunk control. And it was something I didn't even think about, that he was going to be a stay-at-home dad when I was going to be working, and how hard that could look, what that would look like for him. And he got creative. He figured out, one day, because I think he actually fell one day. This was before I even went back to work. My sister had a baby a month after I did, and her baby was a preemie. And so I was at the hospital with them, and he was home with Noelle, and he fell and then didn't have her milk because I was breastfeeding. So milk's in the fridge and the freezer. So then we came up with a plan. Okay, well, we'll have a cooler bag. We'll have formula close enough. That way, if anything like this happens, they are both safe until I can get back to them. Safe and fed, and everybody's like, it's not an emergency anymore. And so, yeah, you kind of just really learn how to get creative. He learned what baby wearing looked like for him, what kind of carriers worked, which ones didn't work. We found a stroller that worked versus ones that didn't work in terms of having a break on the handle for him. We figured out, he spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to get the car seat in, what would be the best way to get her in the car seat by himself. I think a lot of the beauty in it is like, Leon is extremely independent, that he's not going to just sit back and allow his disability to be something that keeps him from parenting well. And so, yeah, every stage is different, because then once she's, past the infant stage, it's like, well, now what am I want to run into as she's crawling? And then what happens when she learns to walk? And now she's 4, and she can get into everything. And so now trying to hide things from her means I'm hiding it from him. So it's like
she put something on the top shelf. Was like, well, I'm a grown up now. What am I supposed
to do?
Right.
It's like all of those type of things.
Why is the liquor up there?
Trying to keep stuff from her, but now she's big enough to reach everything. That is kind of like, now I think one of our biggest issues is like gentle parenting, is parenting differently than how we were raised, which is another like hard thing to do in the midst of everything else that we're doing as hard. But I actually feel like it has its benefits, because the things that he physically can't do, this allows him to be able to parent in a way that his body doesn't have to matter, because we're gentle. We're having those conversations with her that people probably would give us a side eye about, that we're including her in decisions. And, it doesn't mean that we don't discipline her. It just means that we're gentle in how we talk to her, and we see her as a whole person, not like, we're adults and you're a kid, be quiet. It's kind of like we give you the same respect that we want people to give her when she leaves our house. It's kind of like, just because you're 4 doesn't mean that you don't have your own thoughts, opinions, likes and dislikes. And so I think that parenting this way is really hard to do, but I think given his disability, it actually, to me, it helps.
Yeah, that is very different from the philosophy Haitian parents had, because that was different. I came up, but I think our biggest advantage in this day and age is we have the internet. As bad as it can be and as dangerous it can be, we have these communities that you can refer to. Like, I know I watched many videos of wheelchair dads and wheelchair moms, just to kind of get an idea of how they're doing it for, my future decisions, and being able to refer to it in other philosophies for raising kids. So I think that's dope that you guys are taking that approach, and especially if it worked for you guys. And Noelle, hey, all the power to you guys. I think it's dope.
And that's a part of what we created with Heroscopic Humor, is we wanted to show and bring to light, like, there's videos out there how to do it, but everyone's journey is different. So this is my version of how I did it and how I'm navigating it and how we're navigating it together. And that was a big driving force after she came, was like, people need to see this. Because I was looking for videos how to do it. And I'm like, there wasn't that many good videos for me. First off, there wasn't a lot of wheelchair dads. It was all women. So that was a lot of things I was struggling. I'm like, I want to see some dudes out here. I'm not seeing no men. So that was a big deal for me. That was, again, like, wow, we like this as well.
It's a lot of the little things, like even the one day he was taking her somewhere, the fact that he can take her places, I don't take for granted, because I know that there are other wives who don't have that perk, I guess, so to speak. Like, he's able to get her in her car seat, get his chair into the car by himself. And I think that, like, even that, like, it allows me to get a break. It allows them to have their own thing. It allows them to be able to bond in a way that I don't have to always be involved, because she does have this phase of she prefers mommy over daddy. And so when even those little things do make a world of a difference. When he finally got his standard, she came to the rehab with us to see him stand up for the first time, and they played with the beach ball. And like, once we brought it home, she painted his nails. And it's just really having to be like creative with what you have. Like, they play a lot more in bed than they do anywhere else, because that's comfortable for both of them. They roughhouse like he had the son that he doesn't have. Like, they still do all of the things. So yeah.
You brought up 2 points I was going to ask. The first is, so what do you do for your self-care to make sure you're not getting burned out? First of all, as a mom, as a caregiver, as a wife, like, what do you do to make sure Tierra is good?
Well, before Tierra realized that she needed to take care of herself, I was definitely burned out, which is part of why I quit my job, was realizing my last shift I worked was actually Super Bowl Sunday of last year, and realizing that I was trying to do everything for everybody and it wasn't working. And so now I am very intentional about, I'm in therapy every week. I have different forms of self-care that I keep readily available depending on the day, because even after with everything else that's happening, We learned that I have ADHD. And so it's trying to adjust to that and what that looks like and how distracted that keeps me, and, the difference it makes in how I would do things and juggle things. And so one of the things I do is I actually have a calendar with Post-it notes. And so I wake up every day and I figure out how I feel. What do I have the energy for? Some people use the spoons theory of how many spoons do I have today? And I base my decision off of that. So I might listen to a podcast or listen to a book while I'm vacuuming. I might listen to a book or listen to music while I'm making dinner. I'm going to have a glass of wine while I'm making dinner. So I might do a facial one day because, I had to really take the time to figure out who I was outside of being his wife, being her mom. And now I'm no longer in a career. And so it was like, who are you if you're not the roles that you play? And so that's a lot of work, and I'm still working at it, but it was really sitting in who I really am and just saying okay, these are the things that I enjoy and I'm going to lean into those things. And so I find a little bit of something every day to give myself to kind of feel like I'm taking care of me in the midst of taking care of everybody else.
If I could ask you, Leon, I know there's a lot of emotions that came with the injury over, I guess, the last 15 years. How have you coped, or how are you still dealing with some of those emotions?
Laughter. For real, laughter. Right now, I'm getting into therapy because I'm dark. But laughter.
I didn't notice. I didn't see that at all. What you talking about?
Man, yeah. Laughter has been a big deal for me. In religion, faith in God has been a big deal. And that's just, now my family too. Having a family is a big reason to, keep going on. I give up. I didn't really give up that much before. Not like that. Not saying like that, but definitely a big reason is for family.
And you had brought up just interacting with Noelle, with your stander. Does she ask questions about the injury, about you being in a chair, or does she even notice the differences?
So just recently, she started asking a lot more about it. Because I told her, I had a little conversation with her to tell her that, hey, Daddy was shot by bad guys. I'm trying to introduce her into it and help her to understand just a little bit, but not too much. She gets it. Every once in a while, she's like, oh, so you can't do this because your legs don't work, or you're tired, or this. So she's understanding a lot better, and it's naturally evolving, and she understands it. She tells her friends, my daddy's in a wheelchair. She sees wheelchairs represented on a cartoon, she go crazy. I gotta watch everybody that's in a wheelchair that she sees. It's cute, but it's she gets it. She really gets it. Now she pushing me. Before I was just like, she ain't gonna be a kid to push me. Now I'm like, Noelle, can you give me a little push if my hand's full? So it's becoming a beautiful thing.
Yeah,
it's becoming beautiful.
We have to end soon, but tell people a little bit about Heroscopic Humor, the purpose, and where do you want to take it?
Again, the purpose, the real thing is we like for people. I want to say educate, but I don't want to be an educator. I'm just be honest. I like to educate. It was to bring awareness. That's what we call it. It was to bring awareness to interabled lifestyle, interabled relationships. Just so people can see how everyone can still have the life they want to have, be who they want to be, even with their differences. And that I know that there's a lot of people that don't know how to do it or don't know if they can do it. And we just want to show you that you can still have a life. You can still be successful. I'm working now. I just started working. I thought I would be on Social Security, welfare, all that stuff forever, because the way the system is set up, they kind of want you to stay that way. So you're like, all right, I can get a job, but I can't work with so many hours. I want people to see that, if you would like to stay on, that's fine. I was fine with where I was at. And then one day I was like, I'm not fine where I was at. I want to do a little bit more than what Joe was giving me. So I'm like, I got to figure out a way to do it. And now with everything being remote, I feel like it's perfect. For me, knowing what I can do, technology is easy for me. I have no excuse. I have to go remote. I have to, do what I can do and be successful and keep going on. And I like it because it gives me something to look forward to, something to drive to, something to achieve, something to pursue, and rather just every day just waking up, another day to push these wheels.
Yeah, it started off as, it was like our pandemic project. People thought that we were funny and we should have a show, and the pandemic happened and we were like, all right, let's get on YouTube and, you know, give people something to do and something to look at and, you know, something to be hopeful for, because, you know, the world was falling apart and it still is. But yeah, it kind of started out as just something fun to do. And then we kind of started to see the beauty in not just telling our story, but kind of using our story as a way to teach people how to be more inclusive, how to you know, to look at people with disabilities, how to teach their kids to see people with disabilities. You know, people are looking for ways to be better allies to this community. And so, you know, as we're evolving, we're kind of trying to see what people are looking for, what they're taking away from it, what, you know, what their favorite parts of our brand is. And we're just trying to have fun with it. So yeah, it's just a place to kind of just, you know, to laugh and to be hopeful. And, you know, I think originally it was kind of like, if we can do it, you can do it too. And I think it's just kind of all like, find the hope in whatever it is that you're doing. You know, what do you need to keep going? And, you know, if that's something, if we can make a funny video that kind of, you know, lightens the mood for you to kind of take a second for yourself and, you know, gear up to keep going, then we're glad that we could do that for you. If we're teaching people terminology that they didn't realize wasn't, you know, the proper way to call a wheelchair user or the proper terms to, you know, consider, you know, we're grateful for that, because people do actually ask those type of questions. And it's not something I ever would have even imagined that we would do, but I'm very grateful for, you know, where we are with our journey now.
Back here. And I have to say thank you so much, guys, for just being open to sharing your stories with everyone on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and all your outlets. Because for one, I'll say from my perspective, you don't see a lot of Black folks doing it. It's just not that many of us sharing our say that we're not a large population of people with spinal cord injuries, but it's just great to, you know, be able to relate a little bit more to someone that looks a bit like you, that sounds a little bit like you, and understands your unique perspective. So thank you foremost, and specifically to you, Tierra, because I haven't had the opportunity to sit down and have some of these conversations with the wife, the girlfriend, or just from that female perspective. And you've shared a lot that I personally haven't taken into consideration during the relationship process. So thank you. Keep being as super as you can be for your family, for you in general. And I guess the last thing I'll ask you guys is just a quick word of advice for our listeners out there who are getting into relationships or who have been in relationships post-injury. Ask you guys individually or together, just so we can wrap up.
I guess for me, it would be to define your own definition of what your relationship should look like. That everybody is going to look different. And some of the things that you probably anticipated or thought would be like part of your journey or your future it could be different. It can change, and that's okay too. You know, I know there's some things you don't want to budge on. People feel like they need to have standards, and that's fine, but it's also allowing yourself to be flexible, because there's a lot of beauty in being flexible. Like, you know, make beauty from the ashes, so to speak. And yeah.
But while you're being flexible, I want to say don't settle at the same time. So be flexible, don't be too rigid, but don't just take anything. Don't just because you're handicapped and the first person to wink an eye at you and then they're abusing you, you got to go with it. No, you still have boundaries, you still have standards. You make sure you get everything you want to get out of a relationship and a marriage.
There are people out there who will, you know, who
love
are going to be worth the wait.
No matter what.
Yeah.
Guys, again, you guys are beautiful. Thank you for sharing your Valentine's weekend and Super Bowl weekend. Thank you. Time out to share all this with our listeners. Definitely want to keep in contact with you guys. We'll connect more. Leon, I'll hit you up about the tech stuff later on. But thank you so much. I wish you guys the best. Noelle, growing up and being beautiful. And you guys continue sharing on Heroscopic Humor. I'll put it in our episode link so people can check out your links as well. But there you go. Wonderful day.
Thank you
so much.
All right, thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the show. Connect with the podcast on social media. Check out our Instagram page at ramp.it.up.podcast or email us at rampituppodcast@gmail.com. Until next time.